Did Rian Johnson really ruin Star Wars? I know a lot of people out there believe that he did, laying all number of offences at his feet. Therefore, I'm going to offer my own personal opinion on some of the issues that people had with The Last Jedi. Right, the first one is when Rey hands Luke the legacy lightsaber on Acto and he throws it over his shoulder. A lot of people saw it as disrespectful to Luke's character, stating that Luke would never do that to his father's weapon and something that he relied on when he first came into contact with Obi-Wan and learnt about Anakin. I could be wrong, but a lot of people interpreted that action as Rian not having any care for Star Wars, that he intentionally set out to be divisive and to split the fan base. Yes, he wanted to be groundbreaking, but I don't believe that he wanted to tarnish Star Wars. So, back to the action of throwing the lightsaber. Firstly, a lot of people assume that the last time Luke saw that lightsaber was when he lost his hand on Cloud City when he fought Darth Vader. I'm just going to put that statement out there and give some people some food for thought. We then also have these allusions to trash, rubbish, junk, whatever you want to call it. And that sort of first kicked off in The Force Awakens when we see Rey running out from Nema Outpost, trying to escape the stormtroopers. And she sees the Millennium Falcon and refers to it as rubbish. Then, lo and behold, the other ship gets blown up and she's forced to use the Millennium Falcon to fly away. And it's kind of ironic because her whole occupation is around salvaging junk. But it's important to note that the Millennium Falcon may appear to be junk on the outside, but symbolically it refers to so much more than a ship. We then have Finn, who was based in sanitation. And all throughout The Force Awakens, he doesn't quite know his place in the grand scheme of things. He doesn't want to join the resistance. He wants to escape and run away. And even through The Last Jedi, he isn't there for the resistance. He is only there to help Rey. And it's not until he actually confronts Captain Phasma, who in The Force Awakens he put into the trash chute, that he identifies with the resistance cause and admits to being rebel scum, therefore needing Phasma to come to that realization. We have Ben Solo on Crate saying to blow that piece of junk out of the sky, all the while possibly knowing that Rey was on board with Chewie. So it's very poignant that when Ben lectures Rey through their Force connection that her parents threw her away like garbage, but she can't stop needing them, he has this little left eye twitch that completely gives him away. And it's quite telling that when Ben last encountered his father on the walkway on Starkiller Base, he had his hand out on his father and then he just dropped him off the side like you would do a piece of rubbish. And I know that doesn't sound nice, but basically what Ben is implying is that he couldn't stop needing his father also. And for him to say that to Ray, it's a bit hypocritical. Now, I know you're going to say that all these allusions to rubbish only occur in the current sequel trilogy. Well, that's not strictly true. And I think it harks back to A New Hope, when Luke and Han go to rescue the princess. When they first encounter each other, things are quite antagonistic between all three of them, and they don't truly bond with each other until they find themselves in a trash compactor, of all things. Right, back to Luke throwing the lightsaber. Now that I've gone all over those past references to rubbish and Ben's statement that even though you throw them away like rubbish, you can't stop needing them, Luke throwing that lightsaber should have been a clue that he was going to have to use it again at the end of The Last Jedi on Crate. He needed that lightsaber to atone for his past actions with Ben Solo. The next subject is the statement by Ben Solo of letting the past die, kill it if you have to. Now, to me personally, it appeared that people were claiming that Rian Johnson coined that phrase and that it was to do with him moving away from the norm of Star Wars, completely disrespecting Luke and just basically his treatment of Star Wars in general. To me, it was simply reimagining the lessons given by Obi-Wan and Yoda in the prequel trilogy to Anakin. And just to quote a little piece from the Revenge of the Sith novel by Matthew Stover. It is the way of the universe, which is another manner of saying that it is the will of the Force, Obi-Wan had told him. Everything dies. In time, even stars burn out. This is why Jedi form no attachments, all things past. To hold on to something or someone beyond its time is to set your selfish desires against the Force. That is a path of misery, Anakin. The Jedi do not walk it. Now, picture Yoda, a fiery princess and a cocky scoundrel all rolled into one, and I give you Ben Solo. Really, what Ben was trying to do when making that statement to Rey was actually giving her a Jedi teaching. Shock, I know. A dark side practitioner cancelling the way of the light, which leads me on to my next subject, and that is the topic of subverting expectations. Given what I said about Ben Solo, do you really know his character? All the insights that we are given from third persons and our own subjective interpretation of his actions. Therefore, we don't really know what's going on inside his head. Or do we? Lucasfilm have dropped little clues, hidden metaphors, and provided us with foils to better understand where he's coming from. Now, it may be advantageous of me to say, but I also think that a lot of people didn't take on board some of the lessons given in the prequel trilogy. I'm not claiming to be an expert in all things Force related, but I would like to believe that I can make certain correlations between what's happening in the current sequel trilogy and what's gone before in the prequel and original trilogies. Some that are already well known and out there in social media are, for example, Yoda saying in the Revenge of the Sith that he has failed, and in The Last Jedi, him telling Luke that failure is a great teacher. We also have the fact that not only did Obi-Wan and Yoda isolate themselves, but Luke followed in their footsteps as well. There may be some of you saying that Luke isn't the typical Jedi of the prequel trilogy era, and that Luke very much followed his own path where it concerned his father and bringing Anakin back to the light side against the council of Yoda and Obi-Wan. It goes to show that Luke very much has attachments which weren't encouraged at the height of the Jedi Order. So it's with this in mind that I think that Rian did justice to Star Wars by tying Luke's arc with Anakin's and exploring certain themes that were brought up in the prior movies. You're probably wondering why I'm not addressing the fact that Luke cut himself off from the Force. However, I believe that topic should be saved for another video. Though I do want to offer some food for thought and propose to people that after the Return of the Jedi, when you see Luke looking out over a reunited Anakin, Obi-Wan and Yoda, did you really think that everything was going to be hunky-dory and that Luke wouldn't start questioning what Yoda and Obi-Wan told him concerning Vader and start looking at some of the core beliefs of those two and consequently the Jedi teachings in general? As a result of what happened, I think Luke becoming a hermit on Act 2 was the natural character progression for him. And not only that, but it has been raised that JJ was the one to put Luke on Act 2 in the first place. Lastly, people say that there was no plan for the sequel trilogy, that The Last Jedi is very much disjointed from the events that occurred in The Force Awakens, and I would very much argue against that. I think it's a wonderful, if not mind-blowing development, and that Lucasfilm had already fleshed out the meat and bones of the sequel trilogy beforehand. And I know it may be a cop-out to give this excuse, but the Force is always in motion. Regarding the legacy lightsaber and that it was proposed by Maz that it was a story for another time, people were expecting that to be answered in The Last Jedi and were bitterly disappointed when that didn't happen. I would like to say that I think it's pretty much being covered. When you compare The Last Jedi with The Force Awakens, it's pretty much evident where the lightsaber has been when you start to put together all these puzzle pieces. That's pretty much about it. Again, I want to do a video concerning Luke being on Act 2 and why he closed himself off from the Force. And the other videos that I want to do was Ben gaslighting Rey in the throne room, and also the Chosen One prophecy. So please like and subscribe and keep an eye out for those videos. Love and light.